All right, man. Welcome back to a pretty much this will be a special to the sports podcast, another extension to the network. I'm really excited about this. Something I wanted to do for a long time since it kind of started the network. Kind of give people inspiration, more information, educate people. So I obviously got my boy Kenny with me, co-host on IBTE Sports Podcast, and I got two guests here now. Another one is potentially on the way. So I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, and then kind of get into what we're gonna be kind of discussing tonight here. Gouger, you want to go first?
Sure. My name's Brad Gouger. I'm a school counselor in the Utica City School District at the high school for 17 years. This is my 17th year in the district. I also have coached softball and basketball at the college and high school levels for roughly 15 years.
Yeah, Danny, we got some background noise. So,
I lost my.
oh, you good? Hold on, Gouger, you can go ahead. He just muted himself. Sorry about that.
Sorry. So I'm Brad Gouger. I'm a school counselor at the Utica City the Utica City School District at the high school. This is my 17th year. Prior to that, I was not prior to that. For roughly 15 years, I've been coaching high school and college softball and basketball.
All right.
And I had Lawrence and I think Kenny at one point.
Yeah. Definitely. One of my favorites in Proctor. One of my favorites. So, and Danny, how about yourself? Oh, there goes Terrell. I'll give him a second.
All right.
But before Danny goes, just tonight, man, for everybody that's tuned in, make sure you like this video, comment on this video, sub to the channel, share to a friend, young student athlete. Tonight, we're going to kind of be talking about the high school timeline, the myths with the recruiting process, things that are important that you need to know, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about the process and what goes into it. Whether you're playing Division I, Division 2 or Division 3, I think there's different experiences for everybody, and you kind of got to be realistic on what your path is, where you want to go, and knowing how to take those steps to how to get to where you want to be. So we're gonna kind of discuss that from top to bottom tonight. We got some credible resources tonight, different experiences. I'm a former player myself. Kenny's in the media. He's been around sports all his life. He loves sports. And then we also got Danny Santiago. I'm about to bring back in again here. His son is currently playing Division I football. So I'll let him tell him about himself, and then we'll go from there. Danny, you there? Oh. I think he's trying to adjust his audio. Oh boy! All right. While he's waiting.
Yeah, he lost the sound. He put in the chat. He lost the sound.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the sound down here is really, really tricky. I was messed up when I first did it too. But man, I was gonna say, Gouger, what you said? What are you currently doing right now?
So I'm currently 10, 11, 11 and 12th grade counselor at the high school at Proctor High School in Utica. Not coaching anything, just kind of hanging out with the kids, hanging out with my kids, traveling around with my son in hockey and my daughter in dance and baseball and softball, and trying to steer kids at the high school in the right direction.
Yeah, so I got to ask you too, because you said we were texting yesterday. So is the process for hockey similar to like what other kids go through and other like the other sports? Because me personally, I don't know how the recruiting goes for hockey. So how is that as a parent right now?
I mean, he's only 10, so we're not anywhere near that yet. But
Yeah.
hockey's different. I mean, they just like kids leave and go to prep schools, kids leave and go to juniors, kids leave, kids don't go to college for like 21. Right. It's crazy.
All right.
It's crazy. Like when I was a freshman at Plattsburgh, or when I was a sophomore at Plattsburgh, when I transferred there to play basketball, all the hockey kids were like 22, 23, 24, 25 years old, like every single one of them. And they were like freshmen and sophomores in college. Like it's crazy.
I remember like when UC hockey was like big, like when we were like in high school, everyone was like, they're like 28 years old, but it's because they go to prep school and juniors. Like it's by the time that you go to college for hockey, you are a grown adult.
All right, we got Dozier in the chat. I'm gonna, or in the waiting room. I'm gonna bring him on right now. Hey, how you doing?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
yes,
we can hear you.
All right, cool. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties.
No problem.
No problem at all. So right now we're just doing introductions. I want to say first off, appreciate you for joining us tonight. It means a lot for you to join this panel. To give the knowledge and the information that you do have, pass it along. I'm really happy to be able to be doing this right now. It's something I wanted to do. So just introduce yourself to the people and let them know what you do.
My name is Terrell Dozier, Executive Director of Positive Impact New York, and also school counselor at Riverhead Charter High School out here on Long Island.
Okay, nice. All right. So how long have you been a guidance counselor?
I've been doing this officially, I've been doing it for 2 years. Unofficially, been doing it for about 6 years.
Unofficially, what's the difference?
So I just got my master's and I got my certification. So,
okay.
You know what I mean?
Paid more now.
Yeah, and just been helping out, but been helping kids forever with this. So just I started with the NCAA side to it because that's what I'm passionate about, and figured that I would help kids out on both ends. You know what I mean? Because a lot of kids out here that need it.
Yeah, and I think that's really big too. Is just trying to pull people up, pass as much information as you can. That's kind of why I have this network with my friends. I have Kenny on here. He's my best friend. So we kind of built the sports podcast on addition to the network that I have with friends from college. So I can definitely understand where you're coming from in that aspect. Danny, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I just had to get my mic here working.
All right. Just introduce yourself to the people and let them know what you do, and pretty much why you're joining us tonight.
Well, I'm here as a parent with some recruiting experience. The last couple of years have been pretty eventful as far as helping my son with recruiting. So I'm here just on the parent side.
Yeah, and I think that's a big perspective too. Because you obviously you've been around it too, with your brother, so you kind of got that knowledge too. A lot of parents don't understand what it takes, so it's definitely going to be a great perspective once we get going here.
Definitely.
But man, listen, Gouger, I kind of want to start with some of the things that are. What are some crucial steps, or this could be for you? Is it Terrell or Terrell?
Yeah, Terrell.
All right, I just want to make sure. This kind of could be a question for both of you guys. What's something that you see or can help 9th or 10th graders to kind of get them on the right path as far as timeline goes to want to be where they should be when their junior year comes? It doesn't matter you guys can pick who goes first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it should be starting in the 8th grade before they even get to high school. I don't know what Brad's experience is like, but here in Suffolk County, I think a lot of athletic directors and coaches get caught up in whether a kid is Division 1 or 2. Well, you know what I mean? And sometimes you just don't, sometimes you don't know. Some kids blossom late, like sometimes you just don't know. In my opinion, I think any kid who wants to play a sport, right? If you go ask any kid at a camp and say, who wants to play, if you go to a basketball camp, who wants to play college basketball? Everybody raises their hand. Who wants to play college football, right? Everybody wants to play some type, the sport that they're playing in college. So I think for me, I always ask those questions. I think they should know this information if that's their goal, whether they make it there or not. That should be, that they should know this information. I think it's probably the most important, probably the most important thing.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with what you just said. I mean, one of the things, so we started it pre-COVID, like the year, so back in Danny's fresh sophomore year, right, when they went to the Dome.
Yep.
Sophomore year. Pre-COVID, we started with our new athletic director identifying through the coaches, JV and varsity coaches, kids in their program, whether they be in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, whatever year, that really are showing an interest and a passion for their sport. And then really trying to get them the academic information so that, like he was saying, to get them on the path. So whatever happens as far as recruiting goes, whatever happens as far as what level they can go to, if they're fortunate enough to play in college, hopefully the academic side isn't going to keep them back. It's not a perfect system. It's not a perfect world. And since COVID kind of ended or whatever you want to call it, and we've sort of gone back to normal, we've really ramped that back up again, at least at our school. Mr. Parada has been great about that. The coaches have been awesome. We've just been identifying kids younger and younger and younger, even 7th, 8th grade, and really preparing them or trying to get them the information and start to prepare them towards, what they need to know, and trying to get it to the parents too, as best we can.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I didn't even know that was kind of the process. So I'm learning. I'm definitely going to be learning a lot from a different tonight. Danny, as far as you go, you kind of said yes for his getting Booby going around 10th grade. Was it before that, or when
it was definitely before that. I say about 8th grade is when we started working on his body. Grades has always been a point of emphasis in my family. Without that, you ain't going nowhere, but it's definitely before that. 8th grade, I want to say we got serious.
Now you mentioned grades too. As far as education requirements, I know there's a lot of stuff that parents don't understand. What's something that you kind of learned as a parent recently going through it that is crucial to kind of get your kids on the right path and things like that?
Well, fortunately, we were lucky enough to where he was already on the right track. You don't want to ask your questions too late. Mm-hmm. When it was time to start recruiting, we were kind of on the right path as parents as far as figuring out what he needed by just, doing your homework online. There's a lot of access online on where you need to be as far as educational requirements. You could always obviously call your school and if you needed to, but we learned fast that if we weren't ready, we would be in trouble.
Right.
Yeah, Terrell, I see you shaking your head. Like, have you kind of experienced that in your experience?
Yeah.
I agree with Danny, man. Like, what I'm saying, and I'm sure, like, I don't know what Brad's caseload is like at the school and everything like that, but like, I always advise parents to not just rely on the counselors, right? You know what I mean? Like, so my personal experience, how I got into it is, I was a all-state basketball player a long time ago, and I I went to a prep school. I did a post-grad year at St. Thomas More in Connecticut, and had some Division I offers on the table. Was very, very happy about that. Like, that was the goal. And I couldn't play Division I my first year because I didn't take a science class with the lab when I was in high school. Now, back then they had a regions track and then they had a local track. So obviously I took the local track because it was easier. But I didn't know the NCAA rules, and neither did my my guidance counselor. So obviously for me, knowing I couldn't accomplish my goal, I blame my guidance counselor at 18. Like, at 18, I'm not going to blame myself, but in retrospect, you know what I mean? It's my goal. So when I talk to kids now, kids know if you want to be a lawyer, you got to go to law school. If you want to be a doctor, you got to go to med school. They know that. So I feel like if kids want to be these athletes and go play ball in college, they should know this too. They should know what it entails. And then therefore my grandmother she didn't really care because I didn't care, right? So like parents are into what their kids are into, you know what I mean? And so they'll go the extra mile for their kids. So it just, to me, it just starts early. But like Danny said, like, there's a lot of resources out there, what I'm saying, that you can learn on your own, and then you could take whatever you don't understand, and then you can go to your counselor with it. But I would advise all parents and the kids themselves to be proactive.
Yeah, and I could speak from personal experience with Gouger. I don't know how many times I went to his office during that process of just not knowing. I knew I had a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm like, what is this, pretty much? And and I'm thankful for him to this day, because I don't think that's kind of the last hurdle I had to go through to get to where I wanted to be. So I always thank him when I get a chance to see him, or on Facebook or something like that, because this is crucial. But as far as you mentioned, the core classes, like, you didn't have that one class. Off the top of your head, do you really know, like, the breakdown for the core classes that you have to have and things like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell him, Brad. 16 core classes. Right? 16 core classes.
16 core classes, right?
Yeah.
16 core classes: 4 English, 3 math, 3 science, 2 social studies, and 4 elective credits, 10 of which have to be done by your part of your senior year now. So Lawrence, that's a change from even before you,
right.
Or after you, I mean. So 10 classes locked now at the end of you're really at the start of your senior year, so summer school and things like that. And 7 of those 10 have to be in English, math, or science. Yeah. So and honestly, like I tell kids, like, at our school all the time, like, we're fortunate enough to be in New York. So the graduation requirements here are different, right? So kids here have to take 4 years of English. So we don't really have to worry about that piece. Kids have to take 3 years of science. We don't really have to worry about it, but some are, like he was saying, not lab sciences, or not, necessarily NCAA approved. Kids have to take 4 years of social studies. So you have 2 elective credits built right into your world without us even trying. So New York State's a little different as far as the graduation requirements. They actually help kids. Right. We're a little more stringent in terms of what kids need to do to graduate from here. So, like, by default, they kind of do some of these things, and they're already on track. So like Danny was saying, like, he did his homework, him and Dora were great. I worked with their son, and I worked closely with them, even when he was in Arizona, I would, when they were going to bring him back, kind of making sure he was taking classes there. So if he came back to New York, we were, he was going to kind of roll back into the same classes. It's the biggest piece, I think. And I think what's really important for, like, parents and even students watching this, there's schools that have counselors that have no idea what this even means. Like, it's just the reality. I kind of,
that's a fact.
I'm a sports guy. I play college basketball. I coach college basketball. I coach high school softball and high school basketball for a while. It's something that's always kind of interests me, and something that I've always kind of just knew about. And then I just kind of continue to learn about it. And then, so I kind of know the answers, but there are people who don't, and there's schools. And, I remember a few years ago, a football guy came in to see, actually during 2000, it was the 2019 group at Proctor. Division II coach came in and was telling me they just came from Troy, and the football coach said, "Oh, I got 4 guys." Then he got the transcripts, and, like, he talked to one of the counselors. Counselor's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. They're going to graduate." like people just don't know, you know, and it's not the counselor's fault. It's just like, if you don't know these things, like, and they don't interest you, you don't know they exist. You know, so it really is on the parent to kind of know what the kid needs to do. You know, all of the approved classes for every single high school in the country are on the NCAA website. Like, you really have no excuse as a parent not to know, other than you don't know they exist. You know, which I know why Lawrence wanted to do.
Or if your school hasn't updated their portal, which is super important too. You know what I mean?
So portal has like signing into like online classes and stuff.
So what Brad is talking about is every school should have a profile on the NCAA site to say, you know, to say what classes what NCAA approved classes that they offer and which ones are denied by the NCAA. But, you know what I mean? Like, so you talked about Troy. I've spent some time in Albany. I probably know those kids on the Troy team, right? You know what I'm saying? So, like, if you don't update the portal, right? Let's say if you add a class or you take away a class or you change the name of the class, then you can be in trouble. You know, you could be in trouble, because I had kids at a high school that, because a kid couldn't pass algebra 1, they put him in business math, right? Because it's easier for the kid. Well, it's a denied NCAA course, so they lost a year. They lost a year of math, and now the kid's a senior, and it's like, they got him on this easy math track, and he wants to play ball in college, but they can't because he's taking denied math classes. So you got to be on the up and up. And I think, you know, honestly, I think counselors should know it, because it's a part of our, you know, it's a part of it. I think they should have some type of an awareness, at least to be able to point them to the portal.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, schools, not every school, not, you know, I mean, like our caseload is not too bad, but like there's, you know, obviously, like you're a school counselor, and how many you have, but like, I'm sure you know, if friends or colleagues or people at other schools that have 500-600 kids, like,
for sure,
you know, there's a lot going on. You know, but like Lawrence, I don't even know if you know this. When you graduated, actually Bloom's or your school came back and said, like, the NCAA is saying he's not eligible. Stats he needs like a college transcript for stats. So we had to go through, they contacted me. I had to go through the NCAA. We had clicked it, or whenever it was done. Stats has been around forever. It was before me, but we had basically, they considered it a college class that wasn't taken at the high school. So we had to go through and file paperwork on your behalf, basically saying that, like, no, he took that here. That's his high school grade. That's an approved class. Like, we're good. It took 3 hours to do, but it was still like a little bit of a process, because sometimes things just aren't listed correctly. And really, honestly, even like us, like, and I don't know if it's happened to you yet, Terrell, but like that one with Lawrence's situation, like, stats is approved in our world. Like, I had no idea until it became a thing. Now we fixed it, and it's been fine ever since. And it was fine for him too. It just was one of those like clerical things we had to fix.
Yeah.
So I had to go in the summer and take care of that so he could start football season.
For sure.
And what a class. That was a real interesting class too.
I was in that class.
Yeah, Kenny was in that class too. So, oh man.
No, another thing,
saying though, like, you know, like we added 2 new science classes last year. You know, we got them both approved.
Yeah.
You know, we added them 2 math classes. One we got approved, one we did not get approved.
Yeah.
Both college level. You know, one they said no to because it's considered below algebra 1 at the college level, or algebra at the college level. So the NCAA said absolutely not. You already have an algebra class.
Okay, so
the other one was totally cool.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that about the classes that they do deny. Is there like a certain criteria it has to meet?
I mean, usually it's so like math is algebra 1 and higher.
Okay.
So like in, you know, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, pre-calc, calc, statistics. We have a college algebra class now, which counts. You know, but anything like business math, you mentioned accounting, any applied, you know, anything that they consider below grade level, or like he had mentioned earlier, it used to be like, think of the local diploma thing, right? Or the local track back in the day. Those aren't cool. Now, a lot of schools have things like business math and applied geometry and intro to trig and things like that are graduation requirements, but not cool in the NCAA world. You know, the science stuff, some of the science stuff can get tricky, you know, without the labs and different things.
Another question that I had, because I know like a lot of kids went through it. I talked to Lawrence about it, so I know that he knew about it. Danny, I'm sure you knew about it, but just passing isn't always enough too. Don't they have to have a certain, like they have to get a certain grade in that class? Like these kids think like, oh, I passed, I'm eligible, but they have to pass with a certain grade.
So
I'm not sure
yeah,
they all
so
know about that.
in your core classes, your NCAA is required to have a 2.3 GPA, but that doesn't mean the school's requirements are the same.
Right.
There you go. Say it again. Say it again. There's your misconception right there. Now say
Yeah.
that again.
So if you go online and do your homework and you Google NCAA D1, D2 GPA requirements, it's going to tell you 2.3 GPA to get into a school, but the school has their own requirements of their own. Just like, for example, the NCAA does no longer require SAT scores, but some schools might require that you take it still. So, for instance, like Colgate, when we were getting recruited by Colgate, we were told by in Arizona, and our counselor in Arizona, that it's no longer required, but Colgate didn't want to hear that. Well, he had taken it anyway, but they're asking us to retake it just to raise his GPA, core GPA, or however they figure their numbers out. But
he took it as a
it's not NCAA required anymore, but the school is what matters, along with the GPA for the college or university.
Especially your Patriot League schools and your Ivies and stuff like that. And I think that's the biggest misconception now.
Along with the calculus class.
Yeah.
Ivies, Patriot League, if you don't have a calculus class, Army and Navy, that's all your academies. You have to have a calculus class in your core classes for their eye.
Well, and like you said, it's 2.3 GPA, but it's in core classes. So like your art class doesn't count, your music class doesn't count, your gym, if that counts in your GPA, doesn't count. Like kids will say all the time, I got an 84 average, but you don't have an 84 average. You got like an 75 average in that world.
So basically just taking the courses that do matter at the next level, and you gotta take the GPA from those.
Yeah, so it's the 16 classes divided by, they get a point. So they get 4 points for an A, which at most schools is 90 and better. They get 3 points for a B, which is 80 or better, 80 to 89. 2 points for a C, which is 70 to 79, and then 1 point for a D, which again at most schools is 65 to 69. And again, on every school's eligibility or approved core courses on the NCAA is the grading scale. So like exactly what it is. Like some schools I've seen 92 for an A. Some schools, like we used to be at Proctor, we used to be 93 or better for an A. We're now 90 or better for an A. But it's understanding that. And then like the thing, like I was talking to one of our kids, one of our younger kids the other day, who's doesn't love math, and I'm like, okay, he's like, math's hard. I'm like, all right, then do better in English. You get a C in math, get an A in English. Balance them out. Balance out your C. Like that's okay. Like,
and to piggyback off of Brad, I had a kid playing basketball on the EYBL circuit. Went to McQuaid Jesuit in Rochester, which is supposed to be a pretty good private school. A junior going into his senior year, and just that case in point right there, didn't know the grading system. So he was getting 70s, which he thought were C's, but they were D's there. And that difference between 2 points and 1 point in your core means a lot. You know what I mean? So now you got to make a decision where this kid might be getting recruited. He's at a junior college now. There's a difference between junior college and getting a D2 or a D1 scholarship, when you don't know the grade. So it's like, you got to know, like to Danny's point, you got to do your homework, man. Like if this is your child, if the child has to take control of it, the parent needs to take control of it. And then they need to involve their counsel, like Brad said, some of them have large caseloads. I don't. My caseload is 72. So I can, and plus it's my thing. So I'm passionate. I'm passionate about it, and I just go to my kids on it. But like you got to know that, like, this kid got screwed up, man, because he didn't know the grading system.
Well, like you said, every school, every school is different, right? Like if somebody called me and said, hey, my kid goes to, your school, I would have no idea what your grading system is, but I could find out that information if they had a question.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, my kid got an 85 in math. Is that cool? Well, it sounds like a B to me, but we can double check.
Right.
What is the clearinghouse still a thing?
So it is. It's called the Eligibility Center now.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you kind of dating yourself.
Yeah.
Lawrence used to come into stats every morning talking about, I got to get this on my SAT or else clearinghouse says my GPA needs to be this. Lawrence had Lawrence was doing the calculator every morning to figure out.
It was a true obsession. I was like, I gotta make this happen.
Well, how many times did we talk about it?
So many times, 1,000 times. I honestly, when I got home, my parents they really didn't even know what was going on. I was as I was learning from you, going back home, trying to blur all this stuff out, and then they're just like, slow down.
Yeah. So so speaking of all that, right? Speaking of all that, now we're talking about parents, but we're in a lot of cases in our area that we don't have the parents. Right. So imagine how much harder it is for some of this info to get to some of these kids. And we're in that. I'm kind of involved right now with some recruiting with some local kids, and man, I tell you what, their parents are not involved.
Yeah.
I've been making film and sent out 200-300 emails in the last couple of weeks, and I just helped my first basketball player. I had known nothing about basketball. I'm just a football guy, so. Getting a hold of coaches and emailing coaches, and that's tough. Especially if you don't have the parents to help you out, and it's got to be tough. I don't know how they do it. I'm telling you, I'm not even officially married, and I almost got divorced with the hours I spent on Twitter and sending DMs and emails, and it takes some work if you want to get it done. And our road was a little bit easier because of the exposure that he had in Arizona versus New York, so it made it a little bit easier. But I tell you what, if you don't have your parents involved, that's tough. And we're in that, in Utica and our surrounding areas, that's the case a lot of the times.
And where's your son in college at?
College of Holy Cross.
Holy Cross, okay, good, great school.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that too, and then I think some parents will jump in late. Like now it's their senior year, and their kids are like, "Why isn't my kid being recruited to go D1?"
I just had a conversation with a coach right before I got onto this about to piggyback on what we talked about earlier, starting in 8th grade, 9th grade, and then these parents don't get involved until it's their junior year, late senior year, and it's our fault.
Yes.
The coach's fault because we didn't do enough, and they're just jumping in on the whole situation now versus, where were you in 9th grade, 8th grade when this really all started, But it's tough, this parent involvement is very tough in our area.
Well, and the one thing, so Kenny, you were kind of, just to clear up one of the misconceptions that's sort of out there right now that's actually changing. So Kenny, you joked about the sliding scale. Lawrence needed this GPA and this SAT score and this and that. And Danny said, it's not required anymore. So during COVID, the NCAA said no more with this. Like, kids aren't just able to take the SAT. Well, they just came out in January. The SAT is no longer a requirement at all in the NCAA world. It's just 16 core classes. So that sliding scale that used to exist no longer exists. As far as getting in, as far as clearing yourself to play, not getting into something.
Right. Yeah, and I Danny too. I was just thinking about when you're mentioning email and everything. Man, listen. I sat there all night long writing up emails with my dad and making sure the punctuation is right. I had to send it out to 2,000 coaches, 2,000 emails, man. And it's just.
Oh, I've done it.
Yeah, so
Booby had it easy with me. So.
Yeah,
I did all that
with my dad.
So. Lawrence, I think that's a good point you made too. Making sure the punctuation's right. Like that's something that a lot of these athletes need to know too. If you're going to be presenting yourself, make sure you come across as someone that actually wants to be there. Like, don't just hit them up like, "Yo, coach, I'm a 5-star under the radar guy." No, you have to present yourself like I don't know how to kind of humble yourself a bit and make
You
sure
do,
you
you do have to do that. But I've been on the other side where I've received some DMs and some emails. Yo, kid, what do you know what I mean? So they're into it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They get it. They know who they're working with half the time.
That's also a very good
Because I'm
point.
like, this is a coach.
Right, so that's a very good point too.
I've seen it. I got emails. I got DMs. What up? All school. And I'm like, what the? What's going on here? But you are right. Most of 80% of the schools are going to look at that punctuation. But there's a few out there that they know what it is. They know what the kids that they're working with.
And I don't know about in any other sports, but I know definitely in basketball, a lot of time the adults are the problem. You know what I mean? Like, pumping these kids up, man. And you got a lot of kids that are coming in and they just thinking like, I'm going to Kentucky and I'm going to all these big schools, right? Because and then like when it doesn't happen, it's like where are these same dudes that's been pumping these kids up, right? Like, and so everything is about social media plays a big part.
Oh my goodness,
right? Like you got to show everything that you do, and we lose sight of the main. We lose sight of the main thing, man. And it's bad. Like when I look at some transcripts that I get, I said, how can somebody let this kid go this long and their transcripts look like this? But some schools find a way to make sure that they play during that season. I don't know what you're gonna do after you get out of here, but you're gonna play 4 years in this season. We're gonna make sure of that. You know what I mean? So sometimes some of the adults, man, in some of these places, man, they do the kids a disservice too, right? And like I said, like Danny talked about some of the parents and some of the parent situations. You know what I mean? Like sometimes the parents just let you do it because they can't or they won't or whatever, and people will pump you up till you can't be pumped up anymore. And then, they're not really checking on everything else. They're just checking on what you do on the field or on the court.
And you brought up to how they pump you up, like to go D1 and like that's the goal. If you don't go D1, it's a failure. Like me and Lawrence talk about this all the time. Going D1, going D3, going D1.
The number one bullet point on my notes is D1 or bust mentality.
Oh
exactly.
my! Listen,
to go D2, D3, JUCO, you are getting an education to play a sport.
No.
Like take it. Who cares? Like
some of the D3 schools are some of the better educational schools.
Exactly, and some of them are still athletically better than that D1 school you were going to go to. So
I talked to a basketball player last week at a basketball game, and they were like, "Yeah, I don't know if I want to go." I'm like, "Is it because it's D3?" And I was like, "Listen, don't miss out. Don't regret it later."
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like D3 in our area, D3 in our area is some of the best football in the country,
and especially with post-COVID now, with all these kids getting extra years of eligibility and the rise of the transfer portal, to go D1 out of high school, you have to be an elite stud, especially for basketball. And a lot of these kids aren't understanding that.
And it's like Terrell, I'm with you. Like I'm a basketball guy.
Basketball's tough.
Kids look at me at school all the time. Like they find out like I play college basketball, and they're like, "Oh, where'd you play? Did you play at Syracuse?" I was like, "No, I played at Plattsburgh State. I was a Division III guy." They're like, "But you're really tall." I'm like, "No, but I'd be the shortest guy on the floor at those places. 6'4", I'd be the shortest guy on the court." Like the athleticism, and I joke with kids all the time, like basketball kids. They're like, "Oh, I want to go here, I want to go there." I'm like, "You do yourself a favor. Like Utica College is one of the best." I mean, I think they were ranked for a little while. I mean, Kenny, you would know the answer to this.
They just made the tournament.
Large.
I was actually at the Union game. That crazy game.
Go watch a Division III game and ask yourself, can I play in this game before you worry about what your next level could be? There's 6'7", 6'8" guys there.
That is the truth.
And don't be scared to tell these kids that they're not that good.
Yeah.
I think that's the first thing, right? Like you got to be able to look at a kid and say, listen, you're a Division III kid and it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, listen, I got a basketball scholarship. I was blessed. And I said the best thing that I got out of that, because I wasn't going to be an NBA player.
Number 2, realistic expectations.
The best thing that I got out of my college education is I'm 50 years old and I've never paid a student loan.
Exactly.
That's the best of it. So my college was my MBA. You know what I'm saying? I was hurt most of my college career. but I didn't have to pay for it. And I think that's the key, right? Like, kids are transferring to all types of different schools, and it starts in high school. Like, how you go to 3 or 4 high schools because the coach won't play me? Like, you might not be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. It's a tough reality for a lot of people to really take that in, because you have whether it is
the expectations are high, man. They just don't see it.
I've never, in all the years that I coached, both softball and the girls' high school side, and even college, I coached women's college basketball and men's college basketball and high school boys basketball. Never once met a coach who refused to play the good kids because he was trying to lose. Like, ever.
That is very
like,
true.
and I know that's like everyone thinks, oh, that coach doesn't like my kid. Like, he's trying to lose. No, he's not. There's zero chance that the coach is trying to lose the game. Zero chance.
Yeah.
And if he is, we got bigger problems.
And I never experienced that growing up when I grew up. And I don't know how old everybody here is on here, but like the kids who I grew up with, if they were one of the bench warmers in high school, they was one of the bench warmers in middle school. But I've never heard my coach talk to parents about playing time for kids or anything like that. Like, it's crazy to me. But for as big of a star as I was in high school, I was the bench warmer when I got to college. They had to chant my name when I got in the game. So it's like, you got to pay your dues in this game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to wait your turn. And a lot of kids don't want to wait their turn. And these parents don't want their kids to wait their turn. But come see how your kids practice. You know what I mean? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, that's where most of your playing time is earned. And
not the game.
Yeah. And tell these parents too, when these coaches come to these games, they looking at you. They don't want you as a headache. You could be ruining it for your kid too.
Right.
Oh, definitely.
Your parents don't understand that. You yelling at coaches, they don't want that headache.
Or the other one too that I see a lot is if the kid is good and he is being recruited, when the coach comes on the recruiting visit and the counselors call the classroom for the kid and the kid isn't in class, he was skipping class. Like, so yeah, we're gonna come back for this kid when he's supposed to be in math right now and he's not in math.
Yeah, that's happened.
About that?
Sure.
But that's the coach's fault that their kid didn't get recruited. Like, come on.
I still have friends that coach in college basketball. And like anytime like we have a kid at school that like they saw somewhere AAU, whatever, I get a text, hey, how's Lawrence in school? Like, what kind of kid is he? Like, they know what kind of player they are. Like, they're not worried about that anymore. Like, they're not making these phone calls if the kid can't help them. They're trying to figure out what kind of kid he is now.
Yeah, that's what I was going
to say. When he gets there, is he not going to get into school? Is he, those are the questions they're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say that how you kind of treat people too, because my father told me to always be mindful of that, because it's gonna matter down the line when you need them. So
yeah, it'll bite you.
Yeah. Well, especially now with social media, right? I mean, kids post things all the time. They think they're being funny. 3 years from now, it could turn around and bite them in the butt. It's just the reality of it. They don't disappear, right? It's on the internet. It's
forever
there for everybody to see.
Yeah. But yeah, listen, man. Terrell, you mentioned like the levels of you're good in middle school, you're good to high school, then you get to college. I think a lot of people don't really understand that when they get to the next level, that person that was all CNY, all region, all state, the whole team is filled with that. And I had my fair share at D2. I watched a lot of people come and go from being like, hey, I'm this and that. And then you see how it kind of plays out, that these people aren't as good as they kind of believe, and they can't really handle that. They either transfer out, and now transferring is one practice and you're gone now in any sport at this point. So,
and it's about, sometimes you're a big fish in a small pond, right? Mm-hmm. And you think you're better than you are. So I averaged 29 points a game my senior year, and the only college that came was Oneonta. And I said, I ain't going to Oneonta because I'm nice. I thought I was nice. And then when I went to St. Thomas More and I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, I'm playing against 7-footers. I'm playing against some future pros. I averaged 8 points a game in prep school, but because the competition was better, I still I got more Division I offers than I did averaging 29 in high school. And so a lot of kids don't understand that either. They really think it's about how many touchdowns you score, how many points you can score, right? But these big schools, they already got people in position. They're looking to fill the piece to the puzzle. And, I think kids got to understand, you know what I mean? But like in basketball, your parent wants you to score as many points as you can. You don't never hear your parent being like, hey, just go in there and hustle. Score as many points as you can. That's what gets your name in the paper. And I think that's it's the wrong advice. And sometimes you're setting your kid up for failure.
I'm so glad you brought up name in the paper, because that brings me to one of my misconceptions as somebody who writes for a newspaper. I can't tell you the amount of times that I get emails from parents mad at me because I didn't include their kid in the game story, and my son is trying to get recruited to go Division I, and you not highlighting them is going to be the reason he doesn't. I don't know. I've never had a college coach ever email me and say, hey, Kenny Lacey, who writes at this newspaper, who are the Division I kids in your area? I think that's something that, yes, is it nice to have your kid's name in the paper? Sure. But I am not the reason why your child is going to go to college or not. And if you are relying on the paper at that point, you probably have let it go too far. Like, I don't know, unless I'm missing something. I don't think that's why your kid's getting recruited.
Well, and listen, though, I mean, one of the other things too is one of the big things is everybody sees what are the money makers, right? Football and basketball, right? So everybody thinks Division I scholarship, even Division II scholarship, right? Football and basketball are the only fully funded sports at the Division I level, right? All scholarship guys at almost every school that does it. And again, not all of them are, but most of them are fully funded. Every other sport is not. Baseball, 11.75 for 38 dudes. Right. So, we have 2 baseball kids. We got one now. We got one that just graduated last year. Both great students. Well, one of the reasons why they were, so heavily recruited is because they were going to get academic money. We have a girl at Texas Tech right now. She graduated at Texas Tech, wanted to know if she was going to graduate in the top 10% of her graduating class. The answer to that was yes. She's in-state tuition at Texas Tech if she graduates in the top 10% of her graduating class of high school. They paid less money to have her at Texas Tech because she was in the top 10% of her graduating class. They're not fully funded sports. So the academic side can subsidize the athletic side. So you might get 40% in baseball, but if you can get 40% more in academic, you're at 80% scholarship. Everyone thinks I'm going to get a scholarship. Okay, cool. If you're a basketball player and you're a scholarship kid, cool. If you're a football player and you're a scholarship kid, cool. If you're one of the other sports, you might be a scholarship kid, but that might be like a 0.2 or a 0.3. That might be $20,000 over 4 years. No one knows the answer, right? The point is everyone thinks oh, it's Division I, everybody's got a scholarship. Well, false.
That's the truth. That is the truth. Oh man, I had to do some renegotiating when I got to my school. Boy, oh boy. Now, Danny, what I was gonna ask was, which is I think is really big too. I think it helped me kind of get more exposure going to camps. How big is that? How big was that in the process for your son? And just in general, do you think it's helpful? Do you think it's less helpful? What do you think?
I got mixed feelings about this due to our location. Me had the experience of Booby being in Arizona where he didn't have to attend the camp. All he had to do was play one Friday night. But I think in our area, it benefits travel to a camp. So like a Rivals camp in New Jersey or a Prep Red Zone, which is new to New York, but in the rest of the country is well known. 24/7 sports camp, like I said, the Rivals, the FBU camp. Some of them you pay for, some of them you don't. It all depends. I think if we stayed in the East Coast, we would have went to more camps, being that he was in the West Coast for his junior and senior year where the exposure was just ridiculous compared to our area. Not to our, nobody's fault. It's just, their exposure out there is a little better. But if I stayed out here, which I already started with DeMarco, 7th grade, We went to New Jersey January 16th to a Prep Red Zone showcase. He's only in 7th grade, but you get the name out there. He's not going out there to break no 40 times or anything, but he started a profile. And then from the profile that you can't start yourself. So just from experience, like the Rivals profile, your 24/7 where you get your stars, you can't start your own profile. In football, your profile was started by going to one of the camps or getting recruited and getting an offer. And when you get an offer, the Rivals guys get a hold of you, or the 247, 24/7 sports guys get a hold of you, and then they start your profile. And then more recruiting, and then the more offers you get is where you get your stars. But I believe if in the East Coast, our side, New York, if you can get to a couple camps outside of the state, I recommend it. We didn't really have to do that, but if I had to, I will. I have another one lined up May 20th for DeMarco, and he's only in 7th grade, but not too crazy because there's a bunch of them. But I'll do one or two just to get the profile started. But I won't do any more after this year until he gets to high school.
Okay. Terrell, what about you on the basketball side? Is it something that you recommend?
I'm with Danny on it. I think on the basketball side, AAU is so big, that you really don't need the camp as much. You know what I'm saying? There's some out there, and I think it depends on your level. So I had an AAU program back in the early 2000s, and I thought because we were from, Suffolk County on Long Island, we went and played in Texas. We went and played in Vegas and all these different places because we felt like we needed the exposure. And my kids wasn't like that. You know what I mean? My kids. So it was, in retrospect, it was a waste of money. You understand what I'm saying? Like it really was a waste of money. You're hoping that one kid gets off against a good player and can get recruited, but it never helped us. I took a kid to an academic elite camp because he had good grades and he did amazing and got recruited off of that. So it's really about the level of it, like all these kids are trying to get to the EYBL and they ain't EYBL kids. Like, you know what I mean? Like they just really want the Nike sneakers and they just want the access to say that they were there. Right. And what does that
Kenny said, yep.
Yeah. What does that really do for you? Like you want to play, like you know what I mean? And, coaches are everywhere, to be honest with you. They're not just at the EYBL, like, you know what I mean? So, but then some of these schools got these elite camps, right? Where you got to pay to go there, right? And I'm not really huge on the prospect camps for everybody, maybe for like the top 20% of the camp. Okay. But like for the rest of them, it's a money maker, and what are you going to do if you're looking for the exposure? You got to kind of pay the money. So, I mean, if you're somebody upstate New York and Syracuse want to invite you and it's a half an hour ride, okay, then I could take that chance. You know what I mean? But I got a kid at my school who plays soccer and Stanford wants him to come out to their prospect camp. He ain't gonna get on no flight and go to no damn Stanford and then pay. Nah, we ain't doing that shit. If Stony Brook wants you to come, then we'll go check out Stony Brook. But I think AAU and basketball is so big that the camps are not, as relevant. It's more about getting the exposure through AAU.
Well, I will say, just to kind of piggyback on the AAU stuff, there's the travel circuit, right? In every sport outside of football, because it's the only one that doesn't really do it.
Yeah.
You have to be really careful about what program you're joining. If you're a kid or a parent putting a kid in a program, like there's so many that some of them are just money grabs that are useless to everybody, right? Some of them are really, really good. Whether you're trying to go, if you're from upstate New York, even really downstate, you talk about the Albany City Rocks, and there's one in New York City too. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. I'm sure it's around those. The EYBL stuff. Cool. But that's for like kids that are Division I, Division II, big time Division III guys, right? But there's other really good AAU programs on the basketball side, like for your Division III guys. Like you don't need to throw millions of dollars at it. If you're a Division III kid, throwing $1 million at it isn't going to make you 6'9" and be able to take a quarter off the top of the backboard. Like it's not going to happen. Like you talk about the baseball and softball side of things, like, you can travel, you can do different things, you can do all these things, but you still have to put kids in programs with people who have proven track records. So like I know nothing about lacrosse, but there's a program in Syracuse called the Orange Crush, right? It's a lacrosse program. If you look on their alumni page, like 27 kids in the last 10 years they've sent Division I in lacrosse. So if I had a lacrosse kid and I lived in Utica, I'd probably bring my kid to Syracuse and give that program a chance. They have a proven track record of success, right? I like you really, if I'm a parent, and I mean, I have 2 10-year-olds, if I'm a parent and somebody's saying, hey, bring your kid here, I'm going to do my homework on that too, right? Is this worth my money, or is this just you're going to take my money?
Hey, for any lacrosse people watching right now, that's a gym. Run with it. Danny, you were about to say something earlier, but kind of, I don't know if you wanted to run back to it.
Can't remember what it was.
Well, I got a question for you. As far as AAU and high school basketball, do they kind of go hand in hand, or is one kind of like have the upper hand in recruiting?
I think AAU got the upper hand now. Like when I was in school, coaches came to the gym. There's such a disconnect between high school and AAU, and I'm not I grew up on basketball, loving basketball, but I'm just so disheartened by the state of grassroots basketball, just because, I got a 7-foot kid in my program, so I got all the power now. And I you know what I mean? And like, it's like everybody will say, right, it's about the kids, right? But it's not about the kids, man. And like it's bad. Like I don't know about the other sports. I'm not into lacrosse, even though like Long Island is a hotbed for lacrosse, you know what I mean? But like basketball is messy. Basketball is just dirty and messy, from the trainers to like everything, man. It's really, really bad. And a lot of kids are like falling through the cracks, man. And, to me, they don't value the important things. So like, even though, I've been working, I work with some of these, a couple of EYBL programs, like they don't really value it. They all don't value the academic side. They don't value what happens to these kids after the fact. Like, you know what I mean? It's really
just using them.
Yeah, it's really nasty right now, man.
You don't have any eligibility requirements to play AAU basketball.
No.
But in really the other piece is, like Lawrence, to answer your question, the AAU programs are winning that, right? Because they're played in the spring and summer when the college programs aren't playing, right? They can go, like when I used to work at RPI, we'd go to the gym rat, right? We'd see kids from 14 years old all the way to 18 years old just sitting in the gym one day without having to do anything. Right? We'd see teams from all over the country in one spot. So, I mean, AAU wins, and it's made life easier on coaches, but at the same time, doesn't mean it's making a better product. And quite frankly, in a lot of ways, it's making a worse product.
Well, that's what it is. I don't know too much on the basketball front, but it makes sense. Only from the football front, when I was asked and when I was talking to some of the coaches that were doing the recruiting, I was always interested why some coaches don't recruit Central New York like they used to, or why don't they get recruited, period, as much as other areas. And like for the basketball part, like you said, there's 50 teams in one gym. 50 teams playing in one gym in one weekend. Like the college coaches sit there all weekend and watch 50 different teams, 200, 300 kids, versus going to a game on Friday night and watching 2 teams play and having to travel. And why I say that is because I think it was University of Arizona. I was like, and it was the first offer, and I had all kinds of questions for the coaches. I was like, man, we're from Central New York, man. And how did this happen? And they were like, I was like, would you guys ever recruit, in New York or whatever? And he goes, well, we go to the hotbeds. There's 100 teams in Phoenix. There's 100 teams playing on Friday night. There's at Booby School at Horizon, there was 12 schools within 10 blocks. They could hit a game a quarter, by just driving around. And that's what it is. And that's where I just wanted to touch base with the basketball. It's just that recruiting is so much better in AAU because of the amount of kids in one spot, and the same thing with football and hotbed areas for football, Arizona, California, Texas, there's so many teams in a small area that recruiting just makes it easy. Where who's going to come to Utica and watch, one game, fly in Syracuse, drive 45 minutes. You know what I mean? You'd have to really make a splash for them to do that. And we just don't have the not competition, but we just have the, just the kids. We don't have, the firepower,
firepower, star power.
Listen, they did it when Will Smith was a kid.
Well, exactly.
Well, no, that's wrong. The only reason why Will Smith was viewed here in Utica is because he killed the Nike camp at Penn State.
Yeah.
That's how that started. Then they took the drive.
Yeah, then they all showed up.
But
they take the drive after he did that.
After they know. It's something like I see a lot of people like, they always, my coach can do this, my coach can do that. Now, is every coach perfect? Absolutely not. But like you just said, like some of these college coaches are flat out telling you, like, I'm not coming here because there's nothing else here. Like, so yes, maybe your coach could have done more. I'm not saying the coach was perfect, but the coach could have done everything they wanted. The University of Arizona was not flying to Utica, New York to come and watch. And it's unfortunate, but there's nothing your coach can do to make Arizona come to Utica.
Yeah, even Army, same thing. He drove out. We had the coach sitting in my house, but it took Arizona to do that. It wasn't, was he going to come see Booby on a Friday night at Proctor or Saturday morning at Proctor? No, them guys are all in Arizona. 200 coaches just driving around Scottsdale, Phoenix area on a Friday night. You know what I mean? It's just where everything is at. What are you going to do?
Well,
I get it.
Honestly, I mean, the one of the things that I talk to college guys all the time, the social media pieces and these, like you're saying, the camps and things like that, like that exist in all these different sports. Like you got a baseball kid, they get one of those prep baseball things. They got exit velos on them. They got, exit velocities. They got swing tracks. They got maximum arm speed. They got all these different things. So college guys don't even have to get in a car to go watch, like to find a kid. They can find kids on their profiles and then start to do the homework that way. So college recruiting has changed even in the last 5 years.
So I got two questions, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. My first one is to Danny. How did you guys get out to Arizona? Like, what made you guys go out to Arizona?
Well, so 2020 springtime, obviously is right when COVID started coming in March. Once they released the kids from school into virtual learning, we just started working out at the house. The gyms were closed and stuff. And then, March, April, May started coming around, and then we just started asking questions like, who knows? Like, hey, coaches, what do you guys think? And, I think we're going to be all right. But now, are we? It was bad. There's
a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, and there was nobody was answering questions, and there was nobody. Nobody knew. So, how could you expect any of these coaches to make? But in New York State wasn't helping. Like, they were giving nobody answers.
Right.
That's sections, the whatever. None of the section guys were getting answers. Nobody knew. But in Arizona, they were playing. I got family over there. My brother had brought it up to me. My brother was like, "Well, you have to send them all here." I'm like, "Yeah, right." That wasn't even realistic thought. And I didn't mind, and I didn't pay no mind to it. And then as we got closer, it was like, man, they're not gonna play. What are we gonna do?
Yeah,
Arizona
was only one place. Yeah, there was.
They were gonna play. They had come up with a protocol and a plan, at least. Whether it was gonna work or not, who knows? We didn't have one. Like, I'm not saying us as a district. I'm just saying us as New York. We didn't have a plan. We didn't know what to do. They didn't know what they're already talking spring ball. They're already talking spring ball come June, July. Mm-hmm. So you already knew it just didn't sound right, And at least in Arizona, my brother was saying they're talking about playing. They're gonna have no fans, and they're putting plans in place. Mm-hmm. So it's like, man, what do we do?
Yeah.
So we just took the chance, and I never in a million years would have thought I sent my 16-year-old across the country. But he was in good hands with my brother, and it was tough because when he got there, he was fine. But that first couple weeks, I had to fly out there, the 1-day ticket.
Yeah.
I had the one night he called the wife, and he was just, man, he was not in a good place because they were still virtual out there.
Right.
But their practices were 5 o'clock in the morning, and then he would go home virtual school, so there was no interaction with anybody in school, nothing. So he was kind of not losing his mind, but it was driving him nuts, and he just had a breakdown.
Right.
So I flew out there, and I spent a week with him, and that was a week before the game started. And I knew if we get to the games that he would be all right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's dope.
He can get through anything now.
Yeah.
After that.
He's more experienced than I am in a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, he went out there. That's how we ended up out there. We weren't sure. And then he ended up doing the senior year kind of because of the same reason. We were getting some answers out here, but it still wasn't definite.
Yeah.
And as we got closer, it started getting suspect. Nobody was answering the questions. And I was like, you know what? We got our first 3 offers. We could use 10 more,
Right.
So we sent them back out there. He ended up with 17 offers altogether.
Nice.
Solid.
And then my other question is, we got 5 passionate dudes up on this thing, man. How we gonna change the landscape in Utica, man, with this eligibility and stuff? What's the plan up there? What's the plan? I'm ready to come up there and travel, man. What we gonna do?
And I think that's definitely something that I definitely want to talk about. It's always been one of my biggest goals. Whenever I came back home to even work out on things like that, to see the football team, basketball guys, to kind of talk to them if they got questions for me, to kind of pour back into them what I kind of learned from people that helped me. So I definitely want to do something in the future, man, where we can get things figured out, reach out to the correct students and parents that need the help, that want to actually learn too. I think that's something that's important too. They want to learn the things that we can be there and actually get it done. Hold on, I gotta bring him in. But yeah, it's been one of my biggest goals. Kenny knows to talk about it all the time, man. All the
even
time.
like if something like if there were a way to just get the prospective athletes in front of something like this, like with people where they can even ask the questions, like that's because a lot of people they don't know what it takes. Like they don't even know that they're not doing the right things. Like they think they are, and it's not their fault because there's not a how to one unless you know what you want to do and you're looking it up all the time, you don't know. So just to get athletes all in one area to be like, hey, this is what you need to do, or what questions do you have for me? That's something that needs to happen. That's why it's great to hear, like Mr. Gouger said, how now Proctor is identifying the kids at a younger age, because a lot of times the kids didn't know until their junior year, like, oh, I should have been doing this for 4 years now.
Yeah. But
yeah, I know that the football program is working on a few things. I've actually been asked some questions. Vinny been asking me some questions about how they did things out in Arizona, and I actually did my homework with Booby's high school coach and asked them. They did some. I think Gouger knows about this. They're starting to do like the school visits and the school reading. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So having some of the kids go to the schools with their uniforms on and talking to the kids and catching their eye early. During the day, some reading, fundamental stuff with some of the younger kids and catching their eye with the uniform on. And then another thing that I know that one of the coaches that Proctor is doing, he actually took over the president of the North Utica Pop Warner. So you got a Proctor coach that took over the presidency of the Utica Pop Warner just so we could start earlier, reaching out to these kids, and that's going to be one of the things that we're going to do. I'm going to help as much as I can, and try to inform these kids what it takes, to get to the next level. That a lot of these kids, like we talked about, they don't know, and maybe reach some of the parents earlier. So I know that the football program anyway is definitely making some strides towards doing some of this. So.
Yep.
Well, we've talked about doing, trying to do like a parent night, a student athlete night, like trying to get like information to people. But like we do those with like other events and we just don't get a ton of parents. So like it's hard to figure out a way to get the information to the parents. Like, and honestly, like Pop Warner, Little League Baseball, youth soccer, youth basketball might be a good place because kids can't get places on their own yet. Somebody had to bring them. So if we, it's something to think about. I don't know how logistically possible it is in like every area, to do it, but I do think it's something to consider because like my 10-year-old son can't get to Little League practice without a ride, so some adult would hear the information,
right,
like you talk about, I just was at Little League registration last week. The Dick Miller Basketball League was going on. Well, those kids all got there somehow. They didn't drive themselves. They didn't ride with their teammate didn't pick them up. Like adults are around, so trying to maybe get parents at a younger age probably is a really good idea.
Yeah.
It's hard to,
we got no choice.
It's hard to explain to them what's going to happen in 10 years, but at the same time, at least they've heard it somewhere.
No, right.
Well, at least you could catch some of the kids that are interested or some of the parents that are interested. Because some of them parents get into it. Pop Warner, you know what I mean? Like that's what got us focused. Like, man, this is gonna be good. We need to, stick with this, and the way my kids were interested in it, like I would have listened to whoever,
Oh, right. And like Terrell said, like even if they decide like this is what they want to do when they're in 7th grade, whatever, and if by the time they get to their sophomore year of high school, like I don't want to do this anymore. Well, at least you had them in a position that if they wanted to do it, they had the option to do it.
Yeah. For sure.
But man, we're gonna pretty much wrap up here because we got about a little bit over an hour. One thing that I like to do for the sports podcast is give everybody last words. My boy Neil, he loves to say his last words, whatever's going on through the week about a sports team. He goes on a mini rant. So, Terrell, we'll start with you. Any last words?
Nah, I think panels like this are needed. It's good to hear everybody's perspective, especially the parent perspective. Is great. We're a small piece of the puzzle, man, but hopefully we can grow this thing, right? Everybody on here, we just want to help kids. And I think that's the most important thing. So Danny, I applaud you for helping other kids, right? Not just concentrating on your own, right? Like I think that's important. I'm a firm believer that it truly takes a village, and we're all a part of it. So kudos to all you guys.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Gouger, what about you? Any last words from you?
Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, you muted. Yeah.
My fault. No, I think it's important to get messages to people and get things like this out and get just knowledge to people, or at least pointing them in the right direction, and getting them to ask questions and getting them to reach out to people. And even if you don't get the right answer, at least, or if you don't get an answer or the answer you're looking for, you're at least headed in a direction. I think it's important to try and get to people that have information, and like, Terrell said, like, helping kids is the biggest piece, right? I'm here 17 years. Lawrence, you were one of my first graduates. Well, not quite. What year did you graduate?
2013.
2013. So my first group was 2008, I think, was my first graduating class. But it's, it's important to get information out and really try and, give kids a chance.
Right. And Danny, what about you? Any last words?
Oh, last words. I'd have to go on the football side. Some advice on recruiting, and I know we touched base on this real quick earlier, Lawrence. We didn't get to really talk about it, but maybe we could do this again. Just the programs, recruiting programs, and recruiting. What was it we were talking about earlier?
Recruiting
the services.
Yeah.
Don't fall for the services. Yeah. Don't fall for the services that you got to pay all this money for, because Twitter is your number one resource in football recruiting, and that's from Power 5 coaches' mouths. So that'd be my last word. Don't fall for the recruiting services. There's a lot of things you could do on your own to help, but and I'll try to do as much as I can here. I'm just starting to help others. I've done all this stuff for my own kid, and I got another one coming up, so I'll be involved for a few years now. So I'll help out if anybody needs help. Just reach out. I learned a lot in the process. But
Terrell,
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Terrell, I wanted to ask you too, since he brought up the recruiting services. Is there any differences between basketball recruiting services, like the rivals and stuff like that? Is there some?
Nah, I agree with Danny. I'm not a fan of them at all. I don't know. I don't think that you should have to pay for that.
Right.
That's just a me thing. If they're people are interested, then they're interested. If they're not, then they're not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think you got to go pay $79.95 a month, and it might work for some
that's
people.
a deal.
Yeah, like
that's a deal.
Yeah, I'm just not the person. I'm just not big on that. If somebody would ever come to me and say, I would say no.
Right.
Terrell, I'm gonna date you and I in age here, but like back in the day, it was just hoping to get an invite to 5-star.
But 5-star was the place. You go to the last session in August. That's where everybody was going to be.
You went hoping you got invited to the last session in August.
Absolutely. It was great. It was great. And you did date us, man. Please. Right? We only had to get a 700 on the SATs, but you know what I mean? It was crazy. But nah, I would stay away. I echo that, man. Stay away from those recruiting services, man. Like, let the chips fall they may. Like,
there's free ones out there that work. It's the ones that you gotta pay for. Stay away. I learned a heavy lesson in my early recruiting days.
Hey, Kenny, what about you, man?
I want to thank everybody for coming out and doing this. And just for athletes that may be watching this, just hope you really learn something from this. And you have any questions, you got great resources here. Reach out. There's definitely people willing to help you do your own research, or reach out to somebody that can get you in the right place.
And my last words, man, I want to thank each and every one of y'all for joining tonight. I think I messaged Gouger probably 2021 about doing something along these lines, and to see it kind of actually come to life. And it's just a preview to what we can really do. It's really encouraging that you guys joined. It really means a lot to me. For everybody that tuned in tonight, parents, players, coaches, whoever, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you sub to the channel, like this video. If you have any questions, my DMs are always open. I'm gonna actually I don't know if I'm gonna talk to you guys about contact information. If you guys are on social media, I'll add it to the videos. I don't know if everybody is, but I'll add it to the description on YouTube for the people that do have it. But man, I appreciate everybody. And everybody have a blessed night. I'm gonna go watch some basketball right now. So appreciate you guys.
Yep. Sounds good. Thank you. You too.